What up, guys? I'm gonna freaking check out this Peanut the squirrel. Something's going on with a squirrel.
Outrage is growing tonight after New York State authorities euthanized a local squirrel who became a social media star. As we first reported on Wednesday, the Department of Environmental Conservation seized Peanut the squirrel and a raccoon named Fred during an armed raid at Peanut's Freedom Farm in Pine City. This story made national headlines and is still today.
A raid? For a squirrel? And a raccoon? How did a judge approve a raid? Let's check it out.
Today we learned both animals were put down, and we learned that the Chemung County Health Department was also involved in.
They killed them. Oh my God.
Yes. Our 18 News investigative reporter Nick Dabina is here with more, including the emotional reaction from Peanut's owner. Nick.
Hey, Jim. Well, before publishing this story, we called Peanut's owner to ask if he had received any updates on Peanut's fate 2 days after the raid. Mark Longo said nobody told him his animals were put down. Now, we first reported on Peanut last year when Longo started Peanut's Freedom Farm in Pine City after rescuing Peanut.
Peanut's Freedom Farm? That's unusual. Peanut has his own freedom farm? Okay, let's keep going.
7 years ago, Longo said he found Peanut after his mother was hit by a car. He rehabbed Peanut and tried to release him into his backyard, but Peanut never developed the instincts to survive outside. Longo then let Peanut...
Peanut couldn't live outside, man. Oh my God.
...live inside of his home. Peanut racked up a combined 3 million followers on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook.
The most famous squirrel in the frickin' world. They came in and raided this guy's house and killed the squirrel. The most famous squirrel in the world? Well, why?
Facebook. Yesterday, Longo told us he was working on the necessary paperwork to legally own Peanut as an educational animal. He says, though, he was blindsided Wednesday morning when DEC agents served a search warrant at his home and took away Peanut. They also took away Fred the raccoon. The statement released to the media says, the Chemung County Department of Health and the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation are coordinating to ensure the protection of public health related to the illegal possession of wild animals that have the potential to carry the rabies virus. On October 30th, DEC said it seized a raccoon and squirrel sharing a residence with humans, creating the potential for human exposure to rabies. In addition, a person involved with the investigation was bitten by the squirrel. To test for rabies, both animals were euthanized. The animals are being tested for rabies, and anyone who has been in contact with these animals is strongly encouraged to consult with their physician. Longo says Fred the raccoon was being rehabilitated before being released back into the wild. In an Instagram post this afternoon, Longo and his wife held back tears as they announced Peanut's death.
Does something seem wrong here?
Hi, everyone. I don't know how I'm gonna say this. I just want to say thank you to all of you.
Guys, I'm not into the sad stuff, but oh my God. What? This is absolutely insane. What happened to the pursuit of happiness? Why did they got raided? Let's see what they got to say.
Peanut was the best thing that ever happened to us. And we got confirmation that they put him down. I want to continue to fight this fight as much as I can, but we need all of you to come together and help us. Please continue to help us raise money for the ongoing legal battles and for our nonprofit so we can keep Peanut's name alive.
Let's read some of the comments here. Absolutely terrible.
More than 31,000 people signed an online petition to save Peanut. A GoFundMe campaign has also raised more than $14,000. The campaign says the Longos are now, quote, committed in pursuing legal action against the DEC. Jim.
Nick, you and I reached out to several local lawmakers to try to see if they would have something to say to us about whether or not they were getting involved. A lot of it was crickets. Many weren't interested in saying much of anything.
That's right, Jim. We certainly tried. The only official to say anything so far is New York Congressman Nick Langworthy. He released actually a new statement within the last hour. Langworthy says he is now demanding answers after hearing from many angry constituents who called his office. This statement says, in part, the pet owner has not been afforded due process and now his pets are dead. This action comes today as reports have emerged of an illegal immigrant raping a 5-year-old on Long Island. This demonstrates the Hochul administration's deranged level of misguided priorities. In New York State, we have sanctuaries for illegal immigrants while innocent pets are killed. We reached out to Governor Hochul's office, but we did not hear back. New York Senator Chuck Schumer's office told us it had no comment.
Let's see what else is going on with Peanut the squirrel, man. That is... So, this was 2 days ago. 2 days ago. Man. Is YouTube covering Peanut the squirrel up? Okay. I don't know why they'd cover up Peanut the squirrel. But hey, who knows? What's the name of their YouTube channel?
My name is Marty France, a retired Brigadier General in the United States Air Force.
I'm Carly Coppice, and I'm the Weld County Clerk and Recorder in Colorado.
First thing I saw this morning when I went to my phone was a message from Matt, who sent me a really sad story about an adorable pet squirrel named Peanut who was confiscated from his home and euthanized by the Department of Environment.
Oh, dude, how could they go in? What was the government thinking? What judge allowed this? What judge would allow something like this happen? Absolutely.
Environmental conservation in New York.
We need a vote. People get out there and vote.
They also executed Fred the raccoon as well, another one of his pets.
Hey,
so the Department of Environmental Conservation was not really conserving the environment. Instead, they were preserving their KD ratio here, just piling up corpses of beloved pets of this man. It's disgusting. The reason the Department of Clowns gave is a load of barnacles. They said they got anonymous complaints. Thus, they showed up here like fucking every villain is Lemons from SpongeBob, and they confiscated his pets because there was a risk of rabies exposure through him having a squirrel and a raccoon in his home. And then when they were...
But can't they just get rabies shots? My dog gets a rabies shot. It's fine. Like... Sounding kind of...
For kidnapping the pets, one of the officers apparently got bit by the squirrel, and thus they were concerned about potential rabies. But the only way to test for rabies is on a dead animal, so they killed Fred and Peanut to test for rabies.
So the officer got bit by the squirrel, but they killed both?
An entirely avoidable tragedy here because there was no reason to confiscate them in the first place. First of all, the officer being bit is a pretty normal thing to happen here when you're abruptly taking an animal from its home. It's going to get scared and it's probably going to bite because it's frightened and doesn't know what to do. That's not exactly concerning, alarming behavior. That's unusual.
The squirrel looks tamed, like trained almost. Why didn't they just have that guy put it in a box for him? Something's not adding up at all.
And the owner had both Fred and Peanut for an extended period of time, and animals that have rabies usually don't last longer than 2 weeks. They're usually dead within 2 weeks.
Side note, guys, put it down in the comments. Should I grow my hair out? Just putting it out there. I need to know.
Of course, squirrels and raccoons can be vectors for rabies, but so can almost every other pet on the fucking planet, like dogs, for instance. Is the DEC going to start acting on anonymous phone calls claiming that their neighbor's dog might not have their rabies shot? Is the DEC going to bust through their fucking walls with a bazooka and start kidnapping people's dogs and euthanizing them to test for rabies? Probably not. I understand that raccoons are one of the largest vectors for rabies, but in this case the owner had him for so long that if it did have rabies, it would have shown symptoms and had already been dead. And he had Peanut for 7 years. So I think both were in the clear there, and from everything I saw and everything I read, he wasn't being irresponsible, taking them to dangerous locations where they could be exposed to an infectious animal where they could contract rabies. So I think the risk of rabies exposure with this is pretty low. Yes, it is illegal to have wild animals as pets, but he had had Peanut for 7 years, had tried to release it back to the wild where Peanut got injured, and it was clear he couldn't survive in the wild on his own anymore. The owner, the father of Peanut, his name is Mark Longo. He said that he found
Mark is a beast, straight up.
Peanut after his mother had been hit by a car, so he took him in, nursed him back to health. When he released him, it was clear he couldn't survive after getting injured pretty much immediately, and thus he had Peanut for 7 years, took him to vets, everything, did his due diligence, but he never had a permit to own Peanut or Fred the raccoon, and a bunch of anonymous weirdo losers on Instagram reported him to the DEC, who showed up with 6 officials, he's had fucking 6 officers deep in there, like they're about to arrest Cobra Commander, and they took Fred and Peanut and then killed them. On October 30th, DEC seized a raccoon and squirrel sharing a residence with humans, creating the potential for human exposure to rabies. Now, I recognize that might sound like a logical reason to people that may have just had a lobotomy, but as a hypochondriac, I have studied rabies extensively because I worry about every fucking disease and virus on the planet, and I can tell you that rabies isn't just some kind of random mutation that happens. They're not the fucking X-Men. Animals get rabies from infected animals. It doesn't just spawn in there. It's not the Walking Dead virus where they just have it by default. They'd have to be exposed to it through either a bite or a scratch from an infected animal, or in any way getting saliva from an infected animal inside of them. And in extraordinarily rare cases, there is something called aerosolized rabies, which has only been documented in very humid caves with a lot of bats where there's poor ventilation, so they have had non-bite exposure through that. But I don't think
But come on, guys. Doesn't this seem kind of weird?
Mark Longo was taking Fred and Peanut to the fucking caves next door like he was Batman or something. So I don't think there was a huge risk of Fred or Peanut having rabies, considering they both lived with him inside of his residence. They then just go on to say that to test for rabies, both animals were euthanized. The animals are being tested for rabies. Anyone who's been in contact with them is strongly encouraged to consult their...
Well, I think at the end of this day, I think Peanut needs justice. I think we need to band together. I think as a community on YouTube, we all need to get together and fight for Peanut. Because he's a squirrel. Nobody else is going to fight for him besides you and me. Let's do it, guys. Peanut the squirrel out.